Thanks everyone for showing up for how I can easily attack you through email and completely compromise your organization. This talk is really to show people. A lot of people will ask me, can I really get compromised through email, or how bad is it? Can I just, if I don't click on a link or I don't download something or execute something, can I still be compromised? And the answer is sometimes. And so I'm going to kind of cover some very common ways that you can be hacked through email, and some that are a little bit less common but still possible. So to give you a good overview of how you can be compromised through email, if you haven't met me before, most of you all probably haven't. I'm Roger Grimes, been doing computer security for 34 years. I've written 13 books and over 1,200 magazine articles. There's some of my books, and I'll be covering some of the stuff that some of the most interesting cases that I presented in some of those books. I work for KnowBe4. We're the world's largest integrated security awareness training simulated phishing platform vendor. And if you haven't noticed already, I talk real fast. I have a whole bunch of slides to cover in the next 45 minutes, like 79 slides. I kind of say, follow me. I use the slides as a background, and I'm going to try to get through as much as I can. I may even skip a slide or two here and there. But if you're interested in all the content, feel free to download the slides and take a look at them. I kind of include them kind of sort of like a book. But these are the sort of attacks I'm going to talk about. And I would say, if you haven't seen them, at least probably a couple most people were going, oh my goodness, I didn't know you could do that. So I'm going to get right into them and just say that, we're very, if you want to stop hackers and malware, you have to figure out how are they breaking in, and then work to mitigate those methods. Well, the vast majority of the way that hackers get in is social engineering and unpatched software. I'm going to show you the social. I work for KnowBe4. We try to fight social engineering. So a lot of what I'm going to be doing today is showing you how social engineering can be used, plus some regular exploitation. But it's very important for everybody to know that the two biggest ways that hackers and malware break in are social engineering and unpatched software. Social engineering is involved in about 70 to 90% of attacks. Unpatched software is involved in about 20 to 40% of attacks. And everything else added up all together equates to maybe 10% of the attacks. So social engineering, unpatched software, very, very common ways to break in. And I'm going to start with an interesting one where I can send you an email and get your password. And sometimes all you did was open the email. And at the end, I'll show you how you don't even necessarily have to open an email, and I can compromise you. But we're going to start with one known as the password hash theft attack. Again, people will sometimes ask me, it's a really common question. If all I did was open the email and I didn't click on anything, can I get hurt? Can it compromise me? And the answer is 99% of the time, no, but there are some methods. I'm going to show you some of those methods today. The first attack I show you today, and probably the last one I show you, are ones that all you did was, either open the email or not even open the email, and they were able to compromise you. So the answer is maybe, but just know most of the time you have to click on a link, download something, run it, ignore one or more warnings. That's usually how it works. But with this attack, it's an attack where all you do is open up the email. Although, let me say, most of the time, I still have to trick you into clicking on a link. But if I can for sure trick you into clicking on a link, then I can for sure get your password or password hash, and we'll talk about that. And most of today's popular operating systems, Windows, Linux, Mac, Chrome OS and stuff, when you type in a plain text password, let's say that your plain text password is frog, it gets immediately converted to a cryptographic hash, which is just this cryptographic algorithm that turns it into something that kind of looks like gobbledygook. On your screen there, I show you the different hash results for the password frog for different types of password cryptographic hashes. Different operating systems have different types of cryptographic hashes, like Microsoft Windows will store your password as what's called the LM LAN manager hash, or the Windows NT hash. Today, it mostly stores it as Windows NT hash, which is an okay hash, considered about medium strength. If you have Linux or Mac or something like that, they used to store the passwords as what's called a SHA-1 hash. Today, most of them are stored as what's called a SHA-2 256 hash, and those are really good hashes. There's a lot of strength to it. If you have a really secure operating system like OpenBSD or something like that, they may even store your password as what's called a bcrypt hash, and that's considered to be among the top 2 most secure hashes. But anyways, when you type in a password, the operating system converts your plain text password to this cryptographic hash, and it stores it. In Windows, it will store it in the local, what's called LAN Security Accounts Manager, SAM database. If you're logging in locally, if you're logging onto a Windows Active Directory network, it will store it in a file called ntds.dit that's stored on the domain controllers. If you're logging into Linux or Macs or Chrome OS, it may store in a file known as passwd for password, or something called shadow, although they can be in other files. But the key is they're usually stored there. And the reason why they're converted to these hashes is that if an attacker is able to get a hold of those the hashes, all they get is the hashes, and they don't necessarily get the password. But that hackers know that if they get your password hash, that they have these tools called password hash cracking tools or rainbow tables. And if they get your hashes, they can import them into this password hash cracking program, and then they can upload a password dictionary where a bunch of different words and possible passwords have been pre-hashed, and then compare the hashes between the pre-computed hashes against the hashes they stole from you, and then try to figure out what the passwords are. And this is called password hash cracking. Well, what's different here is that your password hash can many times be stolen by all you did was open an email or click on a link. Most of the time, in order for a hacker to get your password hash, they have to break into your operating system, get the highest privileges on your system. So local administrator, local system, root, something like that. But there's this one trick that I can send you an email, and again, either all you do is open it or you click on the link, and your operating system will transmit your password hash that then I, as a hacker, can kind of try to guess at to get your plain text password. The way this particular attack starts, a hacker creates a malicious web server, puts it on the internet, then they send an email that contains a malicious URL that points back to that web server, to an object on that web server. They send the email to the victim, and all the victim does is either open the email, or let me say again, most of the time they have to be tricked into clicking on the link. And when they click on the link, that link will try to download an object that's on that malicious web server. And that web server on the internet, the malicious web server, will tell your browser or your email client, hey, you must log in order to download this object. And then your operating system will many times attempt to do what's called an NT challenge response, password challenge response. It means it's starting to try to log into that web server. Well, the hacker's tool, the malicious web server, can capture the password challenge response handshake. From that, they can actually derive your password hash, and then they can crack your password hash back to your plain text password. So I can send you, in a nutshell, send you an email. All you do is open it, click on a link, and I can get your password hash and start to crack it back to your plain text password. The demo I'm going to show you is actually from our chief hacking officer. Kevin Mitnick's our chief hacking officer. He's one of the world's most notorious hackers. Got arrested back in the late 1980s. He went to jail. He's not done anything illegal since then. Good guy. I know him. He's one of my good friends. Nice guy. Doesn't do illegal hacking. Turns out going to jail will help you not do illegal hacking anymore. But the trick he's going to use is called file:// Most of us, when we go on the web, are used to seeing HTTP or HTTPS on the URL. Well, file is meant to do what's called net BIOS network connections to local files. But Kevin and others found out that you can send that and actually point it to an object out on the internet, and your browser or email system will be tricked into sending that password challenge response handshake. If you're interested in more detail on it, I did write an article a couple of years ago in CSO Online that talks all about it. But I'm going to show you the demo. This is a shorter version of the demo. You can go watch the longer version if you want. But again, it's the ability, and Kevin Mitnick is doing the hack here. He's both the attacker and the victim. But just to show you, and again, this is something that's done in real life. This is not make believe. It really can be done. Luckily, most hackers don't do it, but it does show you what's possible if you know about it. So I'm going to show you this hack. It's an interesting one to watch if you've never seen it before.
This is the attacker system in the cloud, in the Amazon cloud in Virginia. And I'm logged into Outlook 365 here. I'm simply just going to click on the email. I just clicked. It takes a second for Office 365 to load. And here we go. We could see that the email's from Roger Grimes at nsa.gov, which is quite interesting. And there's nothing there. There's no hyperlink to click on. There's no attachment. But if we go over to the attacker system over here in the cloud, we were able to intercept or obtain the victim's NTLM v2 hash. So let's go ahead and try to do this. So we're going to go ahead and highlight this. We're going to copy it. We're going to go over to our password cracker over here. We're going to create a file. Here we go. We're going to paste in the hash. Very simple. And then what I'm going to do is just run a shell script that that tries to crack the hash through a dictionary attack. And this is using a tool called local hashcat. And guess what? It's already cracked the hash. So if we scroll up here, we see there was a user named Kevin, right? And the password to the hash is Kevin123.
So pretty wild attack. If you've never seen it. People that see this are like, oh my goodness, how do I stop it? If you have a Microsoft Windows machine, you can actually apply an optional patch. Microsoft years ago made an optional patch, but because it's optional, no one ever applies it. But if you're worried about that, you can download and install this optional patch. You can also, for this particular attack, you could, if you want to, look for or filter out any email that has file:// in it. And you can also block, you really shouldn't have any laptop or workstation that's going out on the internet using any of the ports I have listed here. These are server ports, or they're things that should stay local on the local network. And so you can actually use a firewall if you appropriately configure a firewall to block these attacks. But probably one of the best things to do is to require passwords that are complex and long enough that they can't be cracked. That means that the password is 12 characters or longer, perfectly random. Or if you create them out of your head, so human created passwords, they need to be 20 characters or longer. I have friends that routinely break 18-character human created passwords. But if you create a perfectly random password, like what a password manager does, then it only needs to be 12 characters long. So usually people see that and they're like, oh my goodness. This next attack, the last attack is a real attack, but it's not done a whole lot, which is part of the reason why Microsoft makes the patch optional. This attack is done all the time. It's known as a password spray attack or credential stuffing. So traditional password, trying to guess your password, a hacker would get a login name, like rogerg@noble4.com, find an online portal that they could log into, and then try to guess millions or trillions of different passwords until they successfully broke, in this case, my password. But these days, most of the login portals have account lockout enabled, meaning that if any password guessing tool guesses too quickly, like guesses the wrong password 6 times in a row, it will lock the account out. Or, there's some number like, 6 times incorrectly within 30 minutes and it locks the account out. So most password guessing attacks don't do that as much anymore. They do this new type of attack, password spray attack or credential stuffing. And what they do there is the attacker tries to get as many login names in a particular company as they can. So let's say they're looking to break into Noble4. They'll try to find out all the login names for all the employees of Noble4. We have like 1,500 employees, so they get all those login names, and then they would guess. They'd go find an online portal to guess against, and then they would try. Instead of trying to guess 1 million passwords really quickly, they only try to guess maybe 1,000 to 10,000 passwords, trying to use really popular passwords and do it slow enough so that it doesn't violate the account lockout. So instead of trying to guess 1 million times against one account, they would rather try to get 1 million accounts and just guess once or twice or 1,000 times. And this is known as credential stuffing. Very popular. Acme, which is one of the world's largest companies on the internet, said they saw 61 billion credential stuffing attacks in a year and a half. Just one company, 61 billion attacks in a year and a half. And this has been used to break into lots of companies. Like here's a news report where the FBI was telling Citrix they got broken into probably using this password spray attack method. Microsoft and Google both say that password spray attacks are among the most commonly used attacks to break into their customers. But step one for the attacker is they have to get your login names. And the attacker usually has to use what's called an open source intelligence tool. There's hundreds of them out there. Here's an example of one they could use called FOCA, Fingerprinting Organization Collective Archives. This one is actually not used by hackers a whole lot. I really have it here just because it's pretty and it's easy to load. And it's the only one that works with Windows, and it's got a GUI. But all FOCA is a front end to connect to 3 different search engines, Bing, Google, and DuckDuckGo. And you put in the company name or domain noble4.com and you hit enter, and it will just go search all the internet using 3 different search engines. And a couple of minutes later, bring you back as much information information as they can find out publicly about your company. In this particular case, they're just looking for login names and places that they can log into to try those passwords. I think that every company should use open source intelligence tools like FOCA to research your organization to see what's out there. Probably the most common tool that hackers like to use, and again, anyone can go download and run this, is called ReconNG, and has 81 different reconnaissance modules. But literally, again, you put the company domain in there, nova4.com, and then you have all these modules where you can go look up and get information on that company, including login names and passwords. If you didn't know this, there's tens of billions of login names on the internet. If you've been on the internet longer than 10 years, your login name and password is probably on there for some previous website compromise. Many times the passwords are old, but with this sort of attack, they don't care so much about the passwords unless there's a password pattern. They really just want to get your login name so they can start guessing against it. Then they have to find an online unprotected portal that doesn't require multi-factor authentication or something like that, or a VPN, including they can try guessing your login name on your VPN connection. And they can even do like Google searches to try to find stuff. And they also have to have some sort of password spray attack tool. There's one out there anyone can download called Spray. It's actually Spray Shell script. Anyone can download it from GitHub and download it. And then the way that you would use it is you'd say Spray. It's what's called a shell script, so it's a script. Then you dash the type of login. In this example here, I'm doing a Cisco VPN login. Then you do the IP address or domain name of the server you're going to guess against, and then the file name of the login names you're using, and the file name of the password list that you're going to try, and then how many attempts that this tool can do per what number of minutes so it doesn't lock out the domain. In this example here, I'm guessing, and I break into and I find 2 accounts protected with password, password or password 1 or something like that. It turns out you'd be amazed of how many companies have very commonly used passwords like password or password 123 or ConvertD or something like that. Here's another tool. This tool recently has become more popular for hackers to use because it works with Amazon AWS. It's called CredMaster, but essentially does the same thing. It does password guessing. You fire it off and it does all this password guessing against a different server. Hackers like this one because it uses Outlook for Web Access and it can do multiple instances at one time, and it changes the IP addresses, so it defeats some of the computer security and monitoring tools that might otherwise detect these password spray attacks. Here's some screenshots from real live attacks that I got off the internet. The one on the left there, all the ones with the length of 4371, those are all successes. And this is from a real world attack. Over on the right is probably a little bit more realistic. Both of these are real attacks, but usually when you do password spray attacks, you don't get 20 passwords that you break. You usually only get 1 or 2. The one on the right kind of shows that this is another real world attack, and you can see where they broke into someone's Gmail account because they had the password of Princess. And let me say, Princess has been on the list of the top 100 passwords for decades. Just like Michael, just like baseball, just like I love you, there's certain passwords, and they don't change that much, that over the decades are the most common passwords. And again, in a password spray attack, they may try like 1,000 or maybe 10,000 different passwords. And even if a company requires like a long, complex password with numbers at the end, somehow these silly passwords get in there, and these sort of tools can come across them. Again, this is broken into many of the Fortune 500 because somehow these bad passwords just kind of get by. So what are your defenses against password spray attacks? Require passwords with strong entropy. That means complexity. And again, that would be a 12-character or longer perfectly random password, gobbledygook, or a 20-character password, what we call a passphrase. And again, that's because I have friends that crack and break 18-character human-created passwords all the time. You should use multi-factor authentication, and let me say phishing-resistant multi-factor authentication when and where you can. That's better than, if you don't need to use a password, if you use MFA, you're not using a password, well, password spray attacks aren't going to work. Also, I say make sure you enable account lockout. Some companies think they have it enabled, but they didn't. Also, enable monitoring to detect password spray attacks. Most security event monitoring tools can detect password spray attacks, but they're just not enabled. It's a feature they have, but it's just not enabled. And also, if you have any what's called application programming interfaces at your company, if you don't know what those are, probably don't need to worry about it. But many large companies have these application programming interfaces, which are just Services where other people can connect. A lot of people do password guessing against them. Acme, remember they said they saw 61 billion password spray attacks in a year and a half. 75% of those were against a company's API, and that's because the companies, they have APIs and people can do password guessing against them, but they're usually not monitored as much as a regular login portal. They don't have account lockout enabled on them, and they don't have monitoring software, and they don't require multi-factor authentication, and so attackers like to guess against them. So if your company has any APIs, make sure that they are protected against password spray attacks. This next thing is, remember I said use MFA to protect yourself? Well, you should use multi-factor authentication. And, multi-factor authentication is like when you're getting a code on your phone, or you have like one of these USB keys you plug in or something like that. You should use multi-factor authentication wherever you can to protect valuable data. And of course, most sites and websites in the world don't accept MFA, but if you can use MFA, that's a really good thing to do. Just know that probably 95% of MFA can be bypassed with a simple social engineering attack. I'll give you an example. I'll show you an example of this, but the attack is known as network session hijacking, but it begins with the attacker creating a phishing email that, it's pretending to be from some site that the user would otherwise trust, Microsoft, Google, Instagram, Facebook, or whatever. And that phishing email is trying to induce the user to click on a rogue link that's in there. It's not really going to the real place. It's a rogue link, but it's saying something like, you need to verify your login, or there's someone trying to break into your account, click here, somehow, or if you don't log in now, we're going to lock out your account. But if the victim doesn't realize, if they don't hover over the link and realize that that link is not going to the real place, what happens is that potential victim becomes a victim, and they get connected to what's called a man-in-the-middle rogue transparent proxy website. You don't have to remember all that gobbledygook. Just know that it's now this rogue server that's in the middle, and then it connects the victim to the website that they thought they were going to in the first place. And this website is just collecting all the information sent between the victim and the server. So if the user types in their login name and password, or they type in their MFA code or whatever, that man-in-the-middle website can capture it. And if the website sends back any information like social security number or credit card information, that man-in-the-middle website can capture it too. Really, in this particular attack, what the hacker is looking for is to capture what's called the access control token cookie. Whenever you successfully log into a website, your browser gets this cookie. A cookie is just a text file. It has this unique identifier in it. It's usually kind of looks like gobbledygook, like a hash. It's a set of letters and hexadecimal letters and numbers, but it's unique for you and your session. For the person that has logged on successfully, this access control token cookie is kind of like a driver's license. It identifies who you are to the website and service, and allows you to move around that website and service to whatever you had permissions to. But if you have a man-in-the-middle website going, the hacker can grab the access control token cookie, disconnect the real victim, and then log on with that cookie and take over. Usually they'll change the password and change other information. This is a really common type of attack. It's been around for decades. First time I wrote about it was in 1989 for InfoWorld magazine, and it's been used to compromise millions of people around the world. Kevin Mitnick, our chief hacking officer, is going to show you an example of this being used. Again, this is kind of a shorter demo of it. If you're interested in the longer demo, you can go to the link below, and I think it has like a 6.5 minute demo. One I'm going to show you today is like 2.5, 3 minutes, something like that. And I forget whether it's Kevin talking to me. I think this one has me talking, but this is an interesting one. And again, it all started because the end user didn't realize they were clicking on the wrong link. So here we are on an inbox, a regular looking inbox, and one of those emails has a phishing email. Kevin's going to click on it. It looks like just a normal email from somebody saying, hey, let's connect on LinkedIn. But this is a phishing email. And if the victim was looking at the URL, they'd see that it's LLinked.com, not LinkedIn.com. But a lot of people would miss that, think it was from LinkedIn, and then clicked on the button. When they clicked on the button, if they didn't realize it was taking them to the wrong place, if you look up in the top hand side there, it's LLinked, not LinkedIn. But really what this is a man-in-the-middle website that's capturing when the victim types in their login name and password. And even LinkedIn is going to prompt the victim to input their MFA credentials after they put in their login name and password. But really, what the victim is connected to is a man-in-the-middle website that is capturing all that information: the login name, the password, and the multi-factor authentication code that they type on in here. So the person gets sent the code, they type it in, they think they're putting it to the real website, but really it's a fake website that's capturing it. If you look behind the scenes there, the hacker, using their hacking tool behind the scenes, has captured the login name and password. The victim is actually in on the real website right now. It has passed them through to the real website. But this is what the hacker captures. You can see email address, password, and what's called the access control token cookie. They could have, if they wanted to, captured that 4 or 6-digit code that they typed on in, but they really, in this particular case, don't even need it because they have the website's cookie. Every time someone logs in successfully, whether it includes MFA or not, the website will send back a cookie that basically says, hey, you've been approved, you authenticated. The hacker can capture that and then paste it into their browser. So here is an example. Kevin is going into his browser, going to the LinkedIn real website. He's not even going to try to log in as the user with their login name and password. He's simply going to inject the stolen cookie into his browser session. He's doing it right here. He's going to open up the admin console, the developer console, copy that stolen cookie into his browser, and simply refresh his browser, and he will be logged in as the victim. And there is the attacker on the real website and as the victim. And this sort of attack would work against probably 95% of multi-factor authentication today. Pretty wild. And I say try to avoid any MFA solution that can be easily socially engineered or middle man in the middle around. Unfortunately, this is most MFA. It's MFA if it gets sent to your phone number, if it gets sent to an SMS message. The most popular types of MFA today can be man in the middle. How do you protect yourself? Make sure that you always hover over and look at a URL before you click on it. And I think it's important that no matter what MFA that you're using, if you can, try to learn what are the common types of attacks that could be against that type of MFA. Educate yourself about those sort of attacks, and then learn how to detect those attacks and prevent them. I always say don't use easily phishable MFA, and that's most MFA. I've read a ton of articles on it. I even have a list. People will say, okay, Roger, you tell me not to use easily phishable MFA. Well, what is phishing resistant MFA? I've got a list called My List of Good Strong MFA. And if you go to that list, I actually say every single type of MFA that is not susceptible to that man in the middle. And there's lots of that MFA out there. It's just that most people don't use it. But you should use again MFA, and hopefully phishing resistant MFA when and where you can to defeat as many attacks as you can. So using MFA is a good thing. But again, here's another example of how I could compromise you through MFA, or in this case, a text message. A lot of people's accounts, their email accounts, their stock accounts, their bank accounts and stuff, they can be what's called put into recovery mode, the password reset or the MFA disabled by putting the account in recovery mode. And in recovery mode, and this is really, really popular, recovery mode, is it'll send you a code to your phone in SMS as an SMS text. And if you have any of that, if you have that SMS recovery, I can use that against you. Like if I know that you have a Gmail account, Gmail allows SMS recovery modes. Well, I can send you a message going, hi, I'm from Google Security. We've detected a rogue sign-in to your good guy account. In order to determine a legitimate login, we're going to send a verification code to your previously registered phone number from another Google support number. Please retype the sent verification code in response to this message, or your account will be permanently locked. This is not from Google Security. This would be from the attacker. And then the attacker just goes to Google Gmail, puts in your email address, tells Google they lost your password. Google will let them send a code, an SMS reset code, that gets sent to the victim. And if the victim types it back in response to the original message, it's game over. That attacker can take that code now and reset it. And let me say, this can be done all kinds of different ways. Like I have friends that tell me, Roger, there's no way you can socially engineer me. I can. I just recently I had a friend and I knew that he used the same stock account service that I use, Fidelity Investments, and I knew that had SMS recovery. So I sent him an email, or I'm sorry, sent him an SMS message claiming to be from his county water service. And I said, hey, a large water main break has been detected near your primary place of residence. Do not drink or use the water from the tap until further notice. We apologize for the inconvenience. Do you wish to be enrolled for proactive status updates about this event? Reply yes or no. And I knew he had a baby at home. You would want to know when you can use the water around your baby. And he replied yes. And once he replied yes, I knew that I had them. I then said, okay, I'm going to send you a confirmation code for enrollment. You just need to tell me the code. And then I went into his Fidelity account. I knew his email address. And I said, Fidelity, reset my password. And it sent him a code. And he sent the code to me. And I'm like, thank you. You're now protected by our emergency warning system. We'll tell you when you can drink the water. And that, the problem is ultimately you cannot trust anybody to be who they say they are if they call you, or especially with deep fake these days, people fake people's voices or SMS messages. It's just too easy for someone to claim to be anybody. And, you don't know who these people are. So I'd say defenses, be aware of rogue recovery messages. And especially if you get a reset code, you're almost always typing those back into an application or a browser. You're not typing them in response to another SMS message. I would say that if you're typing in a code to another SMS message, that's almost always going to be some sort of phishing attack or something like that. I'm now going to show you some advanced rogue URL attacks. We often tell people that make sure you hover over a URL to make sure it's the right URL, that you're going to the right place, and that it's not something rogue. But there's tricks they can do. Like this is one called an open redirect attack. And the way that it happens is that a lot of websites, like in this case, Adobe.com, that's Adobe Reader and Adobe Acrobat and stuff like that. That's an illegitimate website. But for a while, it allowed anybody that put ampersand P1 to put another website address. And what would happen is if you clicked on the link and if you hovered over the link, you go, oh, it's adobe.com, it's good. But an attacker could create their own URL with adobe.com, put ampersand P1, and then put a rogue website. And if you in the phishing email saw, oh, it's Adobe, but clicked on it, it would take you to adobe.com and then very quickly take you to the secondary website. Or here's another one with UPS, with a UPS phishing attack. I think we've all gotten those phishing attacks where they're like, oh, I tried, I'm UPS and we tried to drop a package off and you were not there and we need to reschedule. Well, if you were to hover over this phishing link, it began with www.ups.com. That is the real website of UPS. But it had this error, and an attacker found out about it, that you could in the website do, say, on error. Now, on error means someone goes to the website, they're clicking on something, but then there's an error. And usually, if you've done that in the website, all of a sudden you get this 404 error, sorry, link not found. Well, UPS allowed in the URL to say on error, do this other thing. And it turned out that this other thing was it could redirect you to another website. And I've got it kind of highlighted that on error function ATOB. That's base 64 encoded. It's encoded text that actually converted to Amazon.workers. That's a free website where anybody can go can create a website or a web server for free. So again, the attacker was sending emails out claiming to be ups.com. And if you hovered over it, it would take you to ups.com, but then a second later, it'd take you somewhere else. So, the defense is pay attention. If you're clicking and it takes you to one particular website, but then all of a sudden changes the website domain name to something completely random or somewhere else, be suspicious, right? That's some normal legitimate websites do that. But anytime I see that, I'm like, okay, I'm no longer on ups.com. I'm no longer on adobe.com. Something's going on here. Let me be careful what I accept. And then sometimes even when they look normal, they can be what's called homoglyphic characters. A couple different names for this type of attack: homoglyph attack, homography attack, punny code attack. And this is an attack where the domain name, the URL domain name looks real, looks good, but it turns out that they're using letters that look the same, but in different languages. And that's because there's something called a character set. And every computer that you've ever had, there's only a certain number of characters that that computer can accept. And early on, the first early computers, like when I started in 1987, everybody used something called the ASCII, American Standard Code of Information Interchange. And here's what it only took: 256 different characters. And it was like the English alphabet, lowercase, uppercase, numbers, plus some symbols, plus some other control characters. But like when you type in a lowercase a, really what the computer gets is hexadecimal code 61. Or if you do an uppercase code, it's really hexadecimal 41. That's how the way computers, you type in something and then it kind of converts it to this hidden, invisible hexadecimal code. And that's really what's sent on the computer. Well, starting in 2000, Microsoft Windows went to this open standard called Unicode, and it had millions of different characters. The American Standard Code for Information Interchange only had 256 characters, only supported English. It didn't support Russian and Cyrillic and Greek and Mandarin and all this stuff, but Unicode does. Unicode has millions of different characters, supports every known language, active and ancient, including Egyptian hieroglyphics. Well, when you put them into a web server, or I'm sorry, your browser, it has a subset of that called UTF-8. It's just a smaller subset, about a little bit over 1 million characters, and that's known as Puni Punny code. But it still supports all the active languages that anybody would want to use in today's world. But the problem is that an English A, what we call a Latin A, which is hexadecimal code 61, looks the same as a Cyrillic A, which is a completely different hexadecimal character 430. So in 2017, somebody realized that hey, I can use foreign characters that look like English characters and trick people into clicking on the wrong link. So they created a link called apple.com. You even see it has a little lock icon on there. But when people went to it and clicked onto it, it took them to a completely different place. And that's because it really was not Apple. It was Apple with a Cyrillic A. And let me say, Microsoft now said, hey, these are being used in real attacks in 2021. They found 18 domains that look like Microsoft.com that were not Microsoft.com. There's even this new right to left override attack, which it was used most languages. When we read them left to right, but there's a few languages like Arabic and Hebrew that read right to left. And they can use this Unicode character called right to left override to switch characters to make them go in the other direction. And attackers have learned that they can do that. They can take a file name or a URL name and then actually convert the text on the fly, reverse it in the opposite direction. Like this first one looks like document space exe.txt. A text file would typically be something that couldn't hurt you, but really what it was document right to left override. And when you clicked on it, it converted it from TXT to EXE. It became document text.exe, which could hurt you. And they've been used in real world attacks. Like here's one where it was a phishing email that said, oh, you got a voicemail. And it looked like the file attachment was an MP3, which is a video file or an audio file. But really that little space you see right before the MTH, that was that right to left override code. And what happens is it switched and it turned from MP3 to HTM, which is a very different, far more dangerous type of file than a sound file. I'm going to finish up my last attack and what's called bad rules and forms. Just know in most of today's sophisticated email clients, Microsoft Outlook, Gmail, Google, that sort of stuff, it allows you, the user or the admin, to set rules that can do things on your client. Like if I get an email from my boss, highlight it. And, if it's an email from spam, automatically delete it. If it's an email from my mother, put it in a special folder. Email clients have always had that. But what changed recently is it used to be the attacker had to get on your system to create this rogue ruler form, but now there's different hacking tools, like one called Empire PowerShell, another one called SensePost Ruler, that will allow a bad guy, if all they know is your email address and password, to insert a rogue script. So Empire PowerShell is a tool anybody can download. It came out about 10, 15 years ago, and it has a bunch of different hacker modules. And one of those hacker modules, like the example at the top here, says allows you to install a mail rule on a Mac, and what's called using Apple script. That's Apple scripting language that will do that when a trigger word is present, can make that email do something like, format the hard drive or open a back door to the computer and that sort of stuff. Well, I'm kind of running out of time, so I'm going to get going. But just know in Outlook, You can create new rules. Most people don't have any rules or forms, but you can create them, and you can create them to do almost anything. Like a really common hacker tool or rule is, I want to get a copy of every email that comes into this person's inbox. I want to get a copy of. It's a really, really common type of, they say forward all emails to me, out to some address on the internet. But really, you can also start any application, run a script, do anything like that. You can do anything that the programming language is capable of, and you can do it remotely. So again, I'm kind of running out of time, so I'm going to skip over here and just know I'm going to show you this tool, a demo. It's only about 1 or 2 minutes long, but it's using the SensePost ruler tool. And the attacker is all I have to have for you is your email address and email password, and I can inject a rule into your system that gives me complete control of your system. And that's what this demo is going to show you right here. It's a pretty cool demo if you've never, again, seen it before. This is only about a minute and a half to 2 minutes long. So let me start that demo for you. It goes kind of quick at the top. They have an Empire, or they have a SensePost ruler tool. They're checking the version number. Now, this is the victim client in Outlook. They're showing you that they don't have any rules or forms right now. It's all blank. On the right side of the screen, they have Process Explorer by Microsoft showing you what's running. And at the first ruler tool that they're running at the top, they're showing you the email address of the person, and the form is going to be called display. They're just checking to see that using the password they put in, they could connect to that email client. At the bottom, it's Empire PowerShell listening agent. They're showing you there's no agents yet. At the top, they're going to have Empire PowerShell reverse shell. They're going to obfuscate it so it can't be found by antivirus. And now they're going to kick off their attack. So they're connecting to the email victim, adding a form called demo, and they're including in that form the Empire PowerShell reverse shell. Here it is. The tool's now connecting to that Outlook client. It's creating that malicious form, and then it's going to kick off that form by sending an email that, when the email is opened or looked at, kicks off the Empire reverse shell. So now they're going to the client. You'll see the email arrive. And again, on the right side of the screen, it's Process Explorer, SysInternals Process Explorer. You'll see a command shell. There's the fake email, and boom. Now see that conhost.exe? That's a PowerShell, Empire PowerShell reverse shell opening up a listening agent to the hacker's computer. So again, all they did was, and now they're on that victim's computer with complete control of that system. All they did was have the email address and password, kick off the SensePost ruler tool to inject a malicious form and activate it. So it opened up a reverse Empire reverse command com shell back to the hacker's server. Pretty wild, huh? So yeah, if you've never seen that before, kind of wild. You can defeat this attack by using multi-factor authentication, hopefully phishing-resistant multi-factor authentication. If you can block email rules and forms as administrator, that's a good thing to do. If not, if you or your end users can create rules or forms in email, just look for them occasionally. Every 6 months, every year, make sure you look to see if there's any rules or forms out there. Make sure they're all valid, because most users can make them, but most users don't make them. Microsoft actually created a PowerShell script called Get All Tenant Rules and Forms that works in Office 365. SensePost made one called Not Ruler that works on Microsoft Exchange on premises. I don't know of any scripts for Gmail or for Apple or something like that, but I'm sure someone could write one. Overall, though, if I've lost you, I know I've gone super fast. Remember this. These are the 4 or 5 best ways to defend yourself against all hackers or malware. Number one, do whatever you can to mitigate social engineering. Social engineering is involved in 70 to 90% of attacks. Anything you can do to teach yourself and your coworkers not to be socially engineered by using a combination of policies and technical defenses, like firewalls and content filtering and stuff like that, and antivirus. And education is a big part of it. How to recognize social engineering and stop it is a good thing, and you should do that. Make sure you patch all your software. Unpatched software is involved in about 20 to 40% of attacks, so anything you can do to patch your software is really good. And if you don't know what software you absolutely need to patch, CISA, the Cybersecurity Infrastructure Security Agency, has a list known as the Known Exploited Vulnerabilities Catalog, and it lists all the software that's being used by real-world hackers to attack real-world companies. Use multi-factor authentication wherever you can, and where where you can't, make sure you use non-guessable passwords. I'm a big believer in password managers. And that's because if you don't use a password manager, you have to create like 20 character passwords, and those are really long. And who wants to use them? Instead, use a password manager, and it can create perfectly random passwords that you don't have to worry about. Also, teach yourself and anybody else how to spot rogue URLs, to know how to. I've covered a lot of that today, but if you want to take a longer 1 hour course or read some articles about it, I've got some information there. And I know before we know that if you educate people that they're less likely to click on a phishing attack. Our average customer comes to us with about 30% of their employees that will click on a phishing attack. After we educate them like we did today, it's less than 5% many times later. With that, I know that I have gone so fast. Thanks for putting up with me. If you have any questions that I can't answer today, if you email me at rogerg@know4.com, I promise I will respond to your email, and you can follow me on LinkedIn and Twitter. And thanks for putting up with my, I know I'm fast. And thanks for putting up with me. And I look forward to any questions you have or any emails you want to send me.